We said on our TikTok page that we were going to talk more about the Yowie, particularly real life experiences that we have that have never been disclosed before. And this story is about a busload of students that were taken from Sydney up to a property, which I won't name, between Byrock in New South Wales, Brewarrina, and Burke. The property we went to was 40 kilometres off-road on a dirt track. And it was a very, very late arrival with the probably 20 or so students that we had in the buses. When we got there, interestingly enough, one of the first things the students asked the Aboriginal elders that we were staying with was, do you have hairy men on this property? Much to the chagrin of the elders themselves. They looked uncomfortable talking about the subject and tried to shush us down. But that didn't stop the students talking about it. All of a sudden, it became the hot topic. Is there hairy man on this property? Have you had an encounter with the hairy man? In particular, one or two students kept raising this as an issue. The following night, there was the first sign that we weren't alone on the property. There was running, bipedal running, very quickly between tents, between dogs on chains, all around the property. We could hear footsteps running all night. Unsure what it was, but knowing it was certainly two-legged and not any of the students, a lot of questions were asked the next morning. As I took my own children to walk around the giant dam on the property, we found footprints, two-legged footprints that were about 50 centimetres long. I've never seen footprints like that at all. I took a photo of it, took it back to the uncle that we were staying with, and he pretended he didn't know what it was. This went on for a couple of days. And then finally, he started telling us the real stories about this property. He said that 5 years before that, they'd had such a huge problem with the Yowie that they actually had to shoot at these things on the roof of their house. These beings, these creatures, these animals, whatever you want to call them, would come inside the house, would grab people while they were in their sleep by their legs and try and pull them out of bed. They'd hear them climb up on the roof of the house, and the uncle would go and get his shotgun and literally shoot it through the roof of the house to get these things off. He said to me that this had been going on the property for 100 years that his family had been there, and often there was families of Yowies that would come. There'd be a large male, slightly smaller female, and a child. And these had been sighted on the property for years and years and years and years. He also said that if you hear whistling or hear anything talking to you in the bush, do not follow it under any circumstances, because they're tricksters and they will try and trick you into following them into the bush and becoming disoriented. One night while we were around the campfire, two things happened. The students actually saw one of the Yowies walk between the utes and the bus that were parked just adjacent to the fire, and then on the other side of the fire, a smell came through the camp that was a stench that had to be smelt to be believed. It was so disgusting that people were dry reaching. It was pretty obvious that we were not alone on the camp. The clincher is though, what got rid of these things before we came? Some people say the Yowie is a descendant of a giant ape. The Aboriginal people of Australia say that they were here when they arrived, and including going to war with them. That's some of the stories from the South Coast. Uncle Aussie Cruise down there were talking about that when they first came. But they have been there since prehistoric times. What are they? Uncle Nose gave an answer that might shock you. He said that they're half animal and half spirit. And his evidence for that was the fact that the only way he could get rid of them was not by shooting at them, not by locking the doors, not by not talking about them, not by not thinking about them. The only way he could get rid of them was playing the Bible on CD. He would play the whole Bible on CD, day and night, in the house. And when he did that, they left the property and they didn't return until our busload of students came, started talking about them, started asking about them, started thinking about them, and all of a sudden they were back on the property again. We heard stories from people that were workers on the farm who said that when they were sleeping in their swags, they were grabbed by the bottom of their swag and dragged by something on two legs for hundreds of metres through the bush before being let go. And at this camp we had students sleeping in swags. We were in a tent just outside the house, and there was a few nights hearing those footsteps running around that I was, it was quite terrifying in some ways. We don't know the origins of the Yowie, but we do know, especially as a Christian group, that if the evidence that playing the scriptures on CD kept them away from the house and away from the property, there is obviously some manifestation that is spiritual about them. I hope you enjoyed this story.